ease, man. You're listening to iLive Radio, supporting independent artists from around the world.
Hey, peace and blessings. This is Lucia D inviting you to join me each and every Sunday from 7 to 9 p.m. for Honey Drop here on iLive Radio. Journey with me each week as I spin the latest international sounds in new soul, R&B, hip-hop, and a little taste of everything in between. Every show features independent producers from across the globe in the beats beneath, and the 10 sweetest vibes of the week smooth out the night in the 10 Drop. Honey Drop, each and every Sunday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, here on iLive Radio. Serving up audible treats like honey, always with a heavy beat drop.
Attention à tous les musiciens, groupes, associations, clubs et organisations qui représentent les styles collectifs de musique à travers le Canada. Le moment est venu de reconstruire le genre de nations musicales collectives comme le hip-hop, le R&B, le jazz, le soul, le reggae, le gospel et plus unis. La Nation de la musique collective est une organisation à but non lucratif engagée dans le développement de la musique collective. Des adhésions gratuites sont disponibles dès maintenant. La Nation de la musique collective, une seule voix, la force dans l'unité.
Your number one local radio station.
Happy Saturday, everyone. Happy Saturday.
What's up? Good morning. How you guys doing today? Happy Saturday. Wealth Effect back in effect. How you doing today, Nicolle?
I'm doing awesome. Somebody celebrated a birthday this week. How was that?
Yes. My birthday, getting up there, counting down. It was good, man. Unfortunately, I'm used to having people who know me. I usually have some big parties on my birthday. So this COVID stuff has impacted my ability to celebrate it the way I usually do. So I found it was very quiet, just went out to dinner. It's been a busy mortgage market, which I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about today.
Yeah.
It's just me and you. So
I know this is the first time in a little bit, but it's great because, especially what's happening in the mortgage market, like things have been just steadily picking up as far as, we know demand with buying homes is there, the demand for clients trying to refinance. We had the Bank of Canada made their overnight announcement. So a couple of things, a lot of things we can actually discuss and just, bring everybody up to speed as to what is happening in the mortgage market.
Yeah. So I guess we didn't even introduce the show. So this is the Wealth Effect Show. It's brought to you by CTMS. I'm Jason Allen John and it's Nicolle Williams. Today we don't have a guest. So it's just myself and Nicolle. I'm not in studio, as you can tell. So we reversed for what we did last week.
Yeah.
But I guess, you know what, it's been a crazy week. The mortgage market and the real estate market is insane right now. And I think we could just get into a lot of topics and maybe just discuss what you're experiencing currently. Maybe we could talk about a couple of, deals we're working on, obviously, and just a couple of scenarios just to see what's going on in the market and how we're helping our customers. So
burning midnight oil, literally, that's what I will say. And I think we both can say the same thing as far as, just steadily how busy we are, right? With files.
Yeah. Busy. So let's talk about Bank of Canada.
Yes.
So Bank of Canada didn't move rates. However, we're seeing spike in fixed rates. So, when we look at that, it becomes is variable now an option again, right? So I guess now we can get into a little discussion of now, Bank of Canada has essentially said they're not going to be raising rates until they reach their inflation target which they're expecting is 2023.
Yes.
So that's, I guess, 2 years from now before they'll start raising rates. And however, it seems to me that it's like the bond market or the financial markets are actually fighting what Bank of Canada and what the U.S. Federal Reserve wants to do. It seems like the bond rates are going up, so it looks like our fixed rates are rising. So, what have you been doing, over the past couple of weeks, looking into it with your customers and trying to navigate this market?
Yes. So as I said, burning the midnight oil in the sense of, you get into the office and you're seeing just emails coming in from lenders saying rates to be increased at midnight tonight. And you're like, wow, so it's like, okay, you're trying to get approvals in. lock those rates in. Because prior to, the change and the move in the fixed rates, I was saying to a lot of clients, this is a good time to lock in if you want to lock in the sense of rates are at an all-time low, take advantage, you know what your budget looks like. It just helps people to have peace of mind, not having to sit there and figure out, okay, where are the rates going? What's happening? Am I in the best situation for my particular family? And we were suggesting the fixed. But with the change and the move and, the discount off of prime it has come down, for variable rate products with some lenders. And the fact that the overnight rate hasn't changed. Now the conversation has flipped to where we're saying, variable to me can work for the client that is, prepared and understands what the variable product is, because just defining it, we know that the variable product can change over a 5-year term, unlike a fixed where the rate remains constant. And for some people, that can bring a little bit of anxiety if they are, uncertain or unsure, or if their budget is tight. But for the clients who are a little bit more sophisticated, have, been through the mortgage process before, a little bit, been through the rodeo in a sense. For them, they kind of know what to expect. And for those clients, I'm saying, looking at the variable at this point makes sense. How are you seeing with your clients as well?
Well, it's like a mix, because to be honest with you, we're still at historically low rates for like a 5-year. Like people could still catch, if you're going on the insure side, you still could catch it under 2%. Yeah. So it all really depends on what the customer is really doing. But you're right. The variable rate is very, very, very attractive right now. Yes. Still. And, I have been pushing some customers into the variable rate. So it all depends on the situation. So it's a mix, because it's kind of like, do you think it's like you could take the savings? So if Bank of Canada says it's going to take 2 years before they raise rates, so do you take 2 years worth of savings for potentially to have higher rates their last 3 years of the mortgage or not? So it's a matter of preference, but it's like the rush to maybe convert your mortgage to a fixed rate like it was a few weeks ago is not as evident as there, right? So I think, okay, so you want to go with something like, I know we don't like to do, well, I'd say we don't like to do predictions, but we do a little bit. But I have some things that I think is going to come into the market over the next few weeks, what I expect from what the banks and what is going to happen. So I don't know if you want to lead, or what do you think?
No, you tend to be a really good predictor as to understanding where the trends are going, because the things that you have said that have been bang on, from the beginning. So no, I'm curious to hear what you think.
So I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a couple of things. The banks are going to start releasing 2-year fixed specials. You're going to see 3-year variable rate specials, and you're going to see 4 years. So you're going to see lower down on the curve a lot of rate specials. I think that's what they're going to do in the spring market. It's going to be the promotions and the big thing that they're going to do. I also think that variable rate, the discount on the variable rates, we're going to increase.
I agree with that.
So I don't think this prime minus 1% is going to last very long. I think it's as the rates continue to go up, they're going to say like, oh, we want to squeeze that variance a bit more. So I think this is could be temporary, right? So I that's kind of my thoughts on that. How about yourself?
Oh, you're right. I've already seen lenders start to say, don't worry, the 5 years, increase. But guess what? This is our 3-year special. So everything that you're saying, I have seen some lenders already start to push that narrative. When I was in the bank, that's what they were famous for doing when they wanted to really, take away the fact that they've started to increase in the longer term rate, such as the 5 and 10 year, because sometimes we forget there's a 10-year rate as well, right? And then they start pushing more of their midterm type rate, which is where the client doesn't typically, unless if there's a need for it, they don't typically go 3 years, right? So that's where they start to push that narrative and try to push the client into that box. And funny enough, so my own personal mortgage is coming up, well, it's supposed to come up this summer. And I got a call from the lender saying, hey, now's a good time to lock in. So I always have a chuckle because, until they start really looking at my profile, they don't realize that I'm too in the mortgage space. I'm like, okay, yeah. So what are you offering? And to exactly what you're saying, their offer was they were trying to push me towards a 3-year fixed as well, right? So just very interesting that you actually are thinking that, and that's essentially what has happened even to me as far as an offering that I got from my particular mortgage lender.
Yeah, like I think that's where we're heading. I think we're going down that path. So now what that does do to the market, I'm not too sure. I'm hearing it softening a little bit in some extent. So I think the showings are starting to decrease because the supply is increasing.
Yes.
So I wonder what is it going to be. I think what's happening too, a lot of buyers are getting upset and getting buyer fatigue because the bidding wars are exhausting. Like I've been involved in them myself, and it's annoying and it's exhausting, and there's so much uncertainty that I hate it. So it's interesting that we're going to shift onto this, but I'm going to talk about an article that I was reading the other day, and it was kind of interesting, right? So they're saying that basically, like Canada and New Zealand both have hot housing markets, but only one of them has a plan to cool down things, right? Yes. So it looks like what they're doing, like they are seeing the same issues that we're having, and they're seeing the affordability. But it's funny. So they said it's the fear of speculation investment in housing based on high demand, low interest rates, and rising prices that has prompted New Zealand government and the Reserve Bank of New Zealand to change some issues. So they actually raised down payments on for clients for property owners to 20%, and they raised for investors to 40% down. So
I did see that article as well. It's crazy when you think about it, though. Like I feel for that though, in the sense of when we do that, it's kind of a slippery slope, because now you start to eliminate a big segment of the population that doesn't necessarily have the means to come up with that 40% or even that, larger deposit on that personal, side. So what's the plan for those types of individuals? Are you saying then that real estate is only for a certain segment of the population? And I think that's where we have to be very cautionary. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting. I think that what they should do is, I'll be honest with you, I think they should really increase the down payment potentially for investor properties. But what they need to do is to provide incentives for first-time home buyers. I think if you can protect first-time home buyers and people who make under a certain amount of income, it's hard, because it's like, if you think about it, for the government, it's a hard problem to solve. So they have to solve a housing problem that may be like GTA specific, but it's a national issue. So it's like you affect everybody that's broad, right? So if you start increasing the down payments, it's crazy. So what I would do is I would increase the amortization for first-time home buyers, and increase the down payment on investment properties. I think if I had to do it, and then obviously, it's a slippery slope, but the foreign buyers, I'm hearing in Vancouver, they're getting a lot of like cash buyers are coming back into the market. Yeah. So, it's becoming like, honestly, it's kind of like the Bitcoin story, like we were talking about with Ashley. Like it's becoming like a store of wealth, real estate, more than it is like, so people who need to live in it, like have it as housing, they're at a disadvantage if people are looking at it as an investment. So how do you have to I feel like you have to separate the two. So people who need housing and people who need investment, because then it's two different things. Because then what I think what that kind of would do, it would help us make the investors build more like multi-unit housing, more expansive housing that's for rentals, because then that would be the market that would be more attractive to them. So I think I think if I was a policymaker, that's kind of like what I would look at doing.
Yeah, and it's interesting because even BC is calling for the qualifying rate to be decreased, because that's one thing that we haven't seen actually really fully decrease since the whole pandemic shifted, right? So I know we had one, I think, decrease in the very beginning, but it really hasn't when we think about what the qualifying, and what they're saying is if that rate came down, then that in itself would have helped a lot of these first-time buyers or that are newer into the real estate market. And there kind of is a valid point to that, but I understand why the government probably has held firm, because we know that the reality is we are at an all-time low. What happens when rates start to increase, especially if a client goes in and starts buying at the high end of their budget? And, yes, it looks really good that you might be spending or paying $2,200 a month right now for your mortgage, but that's based on your rate of being 1.64. What happens when that rate now goes to 2.64, and that payment now goes from 2,200 to, let's say, 2,600? What type of effect can that and will that have on your family's budget? And will that then cause bigger issues in the long run, right? So, I even saw that. So that's another thing people have been calling for. I don't think that's going to really come to play, to be honest, simply for what I just said. But I know in BC, they're really, really calling for the qualifying rate to be lowered.
Yeah. So, on what you're saying, that it's like, it's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
The long end is going up and the short end is kind of lower. So what the stress test does is we could see in 5 years that rates could be close to where the stress test is, right? So
exactly.
I think that if they take it away, it should be for first-time home buyers. They're going to do something. Like, they have to do something. The federal government has to announce some sort of policy to assist first-time buyers. Mm-hmm. So I think like that has to come into play some way or another, but who knows what they're going to do, right? Because it's a little crazy. Like, I feel sorry for people who are not in the housing market, because it's so insane. Like, bidding wars, like it's actually discouraging.
It is. I even think about my children. I'm like, just recently it was announced that we hit over $1 million for the average GTA detached home, right? Mm-hmm. And when we were growing up, you thought of $1 million, you thought of this like Richie Rich, uncle, what's his name? Uncle Duck? No, what's that rich duck's name? I don't remember his name. But he used to swim in his money. Remember
Yes, I know what you're talking about, from DuckTales.
DuckTales, exactly.
Yes.
You think about him, you thought about like Richie Rich, you were thinking like these $1 million homes, like these massive homes. And now to know that $1 million is just getting you the average, probably 3-bedroom family starter detached home, right? It's like, wow, like when our kids are ready to purchase, what then? But then it goes back into inflation, right? It's like, what is the value of the actual dollar, right? And that's something that sometimes we forget to consider in the general sense of that, what's the value of the dollar today versus maybe even 10, 15 years ago. And then with that, it goes into the whole thing about policy and, minimum wage. There's so many conversations that we could have, because the rate of people's pay hasn't increased to the level that, the overall cost of living has increased, right? So it's just so many different conversations. I am not a policymaker, neither are you. And but this is why it's important that we have these conversations. We learn to advocate for ourselves. And really, there's no harm in us getting a seat at the table to ensure that our voices are heard, because what happens in the next 5-10 years, and those are the things I think about, like by the time my children are ready to enter the market, these $1 million conversations are probably going to be a thing of the past. Similar to when I remember when I first bought my first detached home, people were like, "You're buying a $500,000 house?
Yeah,
like $500,000." And everyone was like, "Oh my God, it's a $500,000." And that was the big thing, $500,000. And that was a little over 10 years ago. And now that $500,000 is like, tripled in a sense, right? So then where does the conversation go in the next 10 years?
Yeah. Like, where does it like? And that's the thing. Like, is there a cap? Is there a limit? Is this the what they call the New Yorkization or the Manhattanization of Toronto or whatever they call it? So it's interesting. So it's funny because I remember when I was going to university or college, we were talking about like the greatest transfer of wealth is going to happen. Like, when's the transfer of wealth happening? When is the transfer of wealth happening? And I guess it's happening right now. Like there is like all that stuff is going on. So there's a lot to think about, because it's like, if you're like, what do you do if you're a homeowner and you own your home? And let's just say you're going to be downgraded in a few years. What do you do? Do you do it now? Do you speed up that process? Do you think about renting or something like that? Because it's like what about those people who have bought housing, you know, maybe spent $100,000 on the house and now it's worth like $1.5 million. Like,
That's it.
look how that cash could probably change your life. Like, what do you do in that type of situation? I think these are the type of conversations people need to start thinking about their lives, because I always say, like, a house doesn't, the equity never heats your home.
No, exactly.
So if you're not figuring out how to leverage it or use it, or you're not someone that's like that, should you really just sit on your equity, or should you be do something different?
I've seen some realtors actually, that's their marketing strategy. They said, you know, are you thinking about downsizing? Are you entering into retirement? That's literally been their marketing strategy, because they're in the unique situation where, you know, as you said, you can cash out, take your money. You probably only need a condo at this point, or maybe you're going to relocate, or you have other properties that you can, you know, go and turn to. So you're not really having to battle again becoming a buyer, because then that's the flip side of the situation. I've had clients similar to yourself who, you know, sold a property. They cashed out. They were super happy. They got multiple offers, were able to go with the highest offer, but now they have to re-enter the market. So what happens when now you are on the other side of the coin, right? But for someone who's in retirement or looking to retire in the next year or 2 years, they are in the unique situation that they're not necessarily in that same space as maybe somebody that's going from a townhouse to now a detached, or from a condo to a townhouse. They're literally looking to do the opposite, which is to downsize. So they're the ones who are probably going in with those full cash offers, no conditions. And, you know, they're buying the house in cash, and then they're still pocketing a huge chunk of change, you know? So definitely, I would say this is a time to be considerate. My husband has said
this is Jamie Sparks, and you're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio.
Hey, this is Jermaine Robbins, and you're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio.
Yo, this is Keanu Quinn, and you're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio.
This is Lavinia J from the UK, and you're listening to iLive Radio.
Attention, all musicians, bands, associations, clubs, and organizations that represent collective styles of music across Canada. Now is the time to rebuild our collective music nation. Genres like hip-hop, R&B, jazz, soul, reggae, gospel, and more united. The Collective Music Nation is a non-profit organization committed to the development of collective music. Free memberships are available now. Collective Music Nation, one voice, strength in unity.
This is Miss Care, keeping you connected with your iLive 5x5.
Brought to you by iLive Music, sponsored by Independent Hype, and powered by The Hook Entertainment. Contribute to the conversation by using hashtag iLive5x5.
For the latest and greatest in soul music and more, stay tuned to iLive Radio throughout the week.
Connect with our team at iliveradio.com or follow us at iLive Radio across social platforms.
You're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio. iLive Radio.
The number one hit music station.
Okay, guys. So Jason's not in studio, and now I realize how much I value him. He keeps us on track to be like, okay, guys, we have 1 minute left. We have 2 minutes left, and here I am just chatting away. So again, thank you for joining us. We are live with The Wealth Effect with myself, Nicolle Williams, Jason Allen John, who is joining us, as you can see, from not in studio. So I'm going to do my best to keep us online and in track as far as when the commercials come in. But yeah. So just before we got, interrupted with the break, I was just saying that back to what Jason was saying with cashing out. My husband actually says, if we can get $2 million for our house, let's just sell, right? And I was like, okay, sell and go where? Sell and go where? But yeah, so just a funny little thing that we deal with. Also,
and I just want to continue on that just a little bit more, because I just want to stay on the transfer of wealth a bit more, because I'm just reading this article and it's basically saying that so basically in 2006 there was 46% of individuals between 55 and 74 were like mortgage free, and now that's up to 55%. Wow. So it's like there's in Vancouver there's $373 billion in mortgage-free equity in households sitting there.
Wow.
So there has to be some sort of time when there's going to be that transfer is going to take place. So it's like what's happening, I feel like, is that because the boomers are kind of not selling, there's no supply. And because of that no supply, is creating this super frenzy market. So it's interesting that, you know, what's kind of like going on with, you know, that, and like, what do you do? What are they thinking? Because when you see right now what's going on with COVID, I'd never sell my house.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to want to go to a home or anything like that, right? So it's an interesting thing. I find this topic very curious and very interesting, because you look at neighborhoods and you see them sometimes not really shifting, and I wonder what's going to, like, that you would think there would be some more turnover, but there's less turnover, right?
That has happened with I have a client that I'm doing a refinance for, and you know, we have access to Purview, which is a system that allows us to kind of just get a snapshot or a quick idea as to the value of a client's home, right? And when I was pulling the Purview, there's like no data there, and I'm like, this is impossible. How's there no data? And back to what you're saying, it's because there's no sales activity. There's nothing happening within that client's radius to actually generate any true numbers, right? So exactly what you're saying, that's we're seeing it, right?
Yeah, so that I think that's where the weakness in the market is, and I think that's where you know, you have to sit down and think. Like I don't know what I would do. Like obviously I know what I would do, because I'm a cash out guy. If I'd be like, yo, I'm gonna go rent, I'm gonna go invest my money, I'm gonna double that every 2 years in some private lending or something. So I wonder what people are gonna do, because you have to take advantage of sometimes when the market is very high.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, you know, this happened in 2017 when the market was on fire. It went up significantly and people were just like, they didn't sell. And then like only now the prices are back to where they were. So it's interesting because there are some metrics that show we're starting, even on the affordability side, we're still haven't even matched what we were back in 2017 as far as the numbers wise. There's a chart on that. I'll talk about that for a second, but give me 1 second. Let me look for it. But yeah, it's interesting that it seems like we're back to that 2017, 2016 craze. And I wonder what's going to be the change, because what was the outcome of that was exactly what New Zealand did. They implemented the stress test.
Yes.
So that's what stopped the craze.
Yes.
So I wonder what is in the government sleeve right now, right?
Yeah. But then the other thing that's I think why we're in a better position this time versus 2017 is simply because of the pandemic. People have become a lot more cautious with their spending. So, you know, we're seeing statistics that show that consumer debt is actually on the decline, right? So people are looking at it, instead of having all this consumer debt, let me invest in things that we understand, that have appreciating value. And, you know, because of the pandemic, you know, we want more space, we want more home, we want to be able to enjoy our space as much as we possibly can. People are not spending on the vacations that they used to. People are not spending on, you know, going out to restaurants and entertainment. So in actuality, people are just kind of shifting those resources now into housing. That's essentially what's happening.
Interesting. Like an interesting perspective. Yeah, because it seems like, based on this chart back again, it looks like back in 2016, 2017, we were basically, we're approaching those levels. Before that was where the market kind of took a dip back to affordability levels. So home prices relative to compensation were catching up to 2 times our compensation levels, right? And that was when that went over to about 2.1%. That's when kind of like the market started to go down.
Yes.
So it's just stuff everybody, you know, honestly, I'm not a doomsday type of person. I don't think the market's going to crash. I really think there's a lot of positives to it, but it's just things that we have to pay attention to, because there are cycles. And, you know, like some of the stuff when I'm talking about the rates and things like that, it's just me looking towards when we were at a similar point at a time in the past, what was the situation at that time?
Yeah, but you're right. This is what economists do, though. They study the charts, they study the data. Like, they don't get caught up in the emotional part, like, which is what we see and we hear from our clients, oh, there was like 50 people bidding and, oh, it went over asking 100,000. Yeah, those things we understand, that can be more of the emotional context of it. But when economists are really looking at the information, they're looking at the hard facts, the hard data. So they are studying the charts. They're studying, what percentage of income is being utilized. What is the amount of debt of the average Canadian consumer versus now the homeowner. And to your point, I didn't even realize that there's been such an increase in mortgage-free households.
Yes.
And that in itself is like when we think about, okay, game changer, it makes big sense. And this is why there's a lot of first-time buyers that are getting the assistance from their family, because their families are in a position, because they themselves, more mature, have no mortgage or very little mortgage, that they're in a position to help now that next generation get into the real estate market.
No, it's like literally, I was reading it. They're saying, where was it? 85% in some cases are getting down payment from assistance from their family.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, but you have to. It's like that's where the transfer of wealth happens.
Yes.
Like I don't like you're saying like, okay, what's gonna happen to my children? But I'm sure what you're gonna do is, Prudent, you and your husband, you guys are going to transfer some of that equity and that wealth to them so they can purchase property. And that's where they talk about, that's where the transfer of wealth needs to happen. So I think what needs to be looked at a lot more, and I always echo this, is like parents investing with their children in purchasing property. Because it's kind of like, why wouldn't you want that? Like it mind boggles me sometimes when my clients' family have equity and then they want to pay like CMHC fee. Like, it's like, why are you giving the government $30,000? Like it almost doesn't make no sense. Like, you could give them like sometimes it's like an extra 50 grand to save someone like $20,000-$30,000. Like, why don't I just pay you that if I'm willing to do that, right? Why couldn't they sell it to their family as like an investment? So I think, like, I always thought about that. Like, you have to maybe take a course on like, this is how you pitch to your family how to get money for your property. You know what I mean? More like
you raise a good point though. I don't think people actually really realize how much the insurers charge, right? I think it's only once because they know that there's an insurance premium, but they're thinking a couple of thousand. But when you're seeing that it's 35 and 32 and they're like, what? This is how much it is? And I'm like, yeah, that's how much it is. It's like whatever down payment you thought you put down, you basically just wipe that right out. And now you're just capitalizing that back into the mortgage, right?
Exactly.
But they really, I don't think they understand. And this goes back to, you and I've had these conversations before. It's about how do you provide a win-win? Instead of going to them and saying, hey, just give me this money. No, approach it to say, how can we go in this as an investment? Yes, I might be the one that's going to physically stay in the property. I'll pay the mortgage. But if you put in X amount, I put in X amount, you have a percentage of ownership. I have a percentage of ownership. And we're both taking advantage of what's happening in the real estate market.
Yeah. And there's like literally small things you could do. Like, for example, like one may say, okay, I'm going to get my down payment assistance from my family. Now that I'm on a 30-year amortization, but I'm gonna pay as if it's a 25-year amortization. Mm-hmm. And in the 5 years, you should be able to develop enough equity with, even small 1% to 2% growth on a home, enough equity to probably pay back that out.
Yeah.
Just smart, you know what I mean? And it's just, and at the end of the day, if you think about it, that money is really there.
Yes.
So like, it's like, I think, like literally, like, maybe one day we should do a show where like we actually pull up some numbers and show people this, because I think it would be good education to understand how that works. And maybe that would open up more parents and boomers or grandparents to free up some of their equity for the next generation, because otherwise that's what's going to be the difficulties. You're not selling your home, so people are getting access to your houses, so there's lack of supply. So what way can you do is you can help, you know what I mean? And I think that's a good way of assisting the next generation, as long as you believe in the housing, right? So if you think the person's making a right decision, why wouldn't you help, right? So, and also you can see the person benefit off of it. Like, I know so many, one of my best clients, like one of my first mortgages I ever did was with him. And I remember, his family bought him a condo when they went to college. When he went to college. Mm-hmm. And the condo at that time was like, I think it was like 160, like downtown, but he had to make the payments. So instead of him renting, it's that. And that property catapulted him to now he has like 7 properties. Wow. And at that time, I think the parents may have put down like $50,000, but like now he has 4 or 5 properties, living in a multi-million-dollar home, and just used the leverage of the equity. But look, the parents literally gave him, let's just say 50 grand, and now he's set literally for the rest of his life. Now, he's a smart guy, and I don't want to take away from him. And I'm not saying it's only because the parents gave him that money, but it's just that awareness to like, let me give my children a push.
Yeah.
Right? And now that could be your aunt. You could do that for your friends. Like you know what I mean? It doesn't limit you to just family members or parent relationship.
Not at all. And this is where the power of, just understanding, because I've seen where people, not necessarily family members, but even friends have said, okay, you know what, I can lend you the money. So instead of, you taking all of the money from a bank, you could also have, this is where second mortgages come in, right? So you can have a private mortgage, and this could be a family member. This could be your neighbor. This could be somebody who has money, and you're saying, instead of investing it or putting it in a savings account and not even getting 1%, I'm willing to pay you X amount because you're willing to lend me this amount of money. It's fully registered on title. This is fully legal. There's things, but again, this is about having these types of conversations because A, it helps that person by coming up with a little bit more money to get that property. And then B, it's helping you because instead of you having it sitting in a cash account making pretty much nothing, you're now actually making something. And you also have yourself protected as far as it being registered and such on title as well.
Yeah, so we always talk about the difficulties for first-time home buyers getting into the market, and like these are just some of these actual solutions. Like, you know what I mean? Like, a solution number one, you can go access additional equity from family members. Like, rates are at all-time low, so if they're borrowing at 2% or under, like it's like a win-win-win. And if you think these prices are going to continue to go up at these levels, then why not make that type of investment? You know what I mean? So these are the things. And then like, I think what's going to come into play a lot, house hacking. Like, why not think about buying a home with a friend at this point in juncture, right? Maybe you could buy something that's a duplex. You could live in the basement, whatever. Maybe you can afford a condo and they can afford a home. Like, why not look at that? Because that's where you got to get creative if you want to get into it. Like, you can't sit there and complain that you can't get in. Like, you have to figure out what you can do, what you can work with, right?
Yeah. And then the other thing is to consider is your RRSPs. Are you taking advantage of the home buyers plan through the RRSP? How many people are aware that you can actually withdraw up to $35,000 from your RRSP in order to make the purchase? And then what happens if you don't have the $35,000? You can take an RRSP loan, put the money into the RRSP. As long as the money's in there for 90 days, you actually can then pull those funds out, utilize $35,000 towards your down payment, right? And then if it's 2 of you, that's $70,000, So there's so many different options. We just have to be open to the possibility, still really believe. And then I'm a full proponent. If you cannot afford what's happening in Toronto or the surrounding areas, we are not bounded by a jurisdiction, right? We can go anywhere. I've had clients since the beginning of the year move to London. I've had people move to Windsor. I've had people that are now looking into Hamilton, the Niagara, St. Catharines area, because they're saying, you know what, we're home. I want more space than just being in a small condo. And I'm open to looking at other areas, right? And with that being said, I actually saw an article recently where Windsor is having such a big spike as a result of people thinking and doing exactly what I'm saying. So instead of being stuck in the greater Toronto area where you really can't get anything for your, let's say you qualify for $500,000 and you don't want a condo, right? You do want a home. That $500,000, you can actually get something in Windsor for that price point, something in St. Catharines, something in some of these other areas. And as a result, I did see an article where Windsor's having a huge spike in their overall real estate market as a result of people moving from the GTA out there. I don't know if you're experiencing any of that with your clients, and what you're seeing.
Yeah, so it's like honestly, like it's crazy. And that's just probably the easiest thing to describe it. But like Hamilton is another proponent that's seeing that spillover from the Toronto effect, right?
Yeah.
So, I think another thing that's going to happen, here's another like little tidbit. I think employers, because if they start making people work from home, like I don't know if you remember, I don't know how when you were working in the bank in TD days, but I remember when I was at BMO, they used to have pay scales based on where you lived. So obviously the cost of living in different areas. So if all of a sudden you're going to be working from home and you live in Niagara, they're going to pay you that Niagara wage. They're not going to give you that Toronto wage no more because you're not commuted no more, right? So I wonder how that's going to affect people because they may have moved out there. But like, I think I'm more of a proponent of you buying a property as an investment property and renting where you want to live.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a stronger thing than moving so far away from where you are used to living just to purchase a home. Because real estate is, if you're doing that, then it's gone beyond it's my house. You're thinking like an investor.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking like an investor, you might not buy that house to live in because it doesn't make any sense when you think of it, when you put on your business hat. So I think people have to get that FOMO out of their eyes and think rationally on, if you're going to want to live all the way out there just to say you afford a home, but could you just go buy a rental property out there if you want to participate in the market? Because you can buy a rental property, hold it for 5 years, maybe rent, and then sell that property.
Good point.
And then use that money as a down payment to get you where you're going to go, as opposed to saying I'm going to inconvenience my lifestyle and all this kind of stuff. So you have to really look like renting is so taboo. And I understand why people don't like it. I get it. Like housing prices has been such a sure bet. Like it's always gone up. It's always gone up in the last like 20 years. No one in our generation knows about housing prices going down really. So it's like, it's always been better, but it doesn't, I don't mean you can rent and still become very wealthy. I know some renters that are very successful, and it doesn't mean they're never going to buy a home. It's just that they're going to wait for that opportunity. So it's just I feel like that's a proponent of house hacking.
Yeah, and you're right. I've actually spoken to a couple of realtors who said that they are listing their homes and they're going to rent, right? They're because we are at a time where we're at the top end in their eyes of where the real estate market is going to be in the next little while. So they're like, why not just cash out, take my money, and then I'll just rent in the city. I'm perfectly fine with that, So what you're saying, even realtors themselves are looking to have that as an option.
Yeah, like it's very. I think that's gonna come up. Like it's a conversation you have to have. You could distribute your income more, you know what I mean? Like
write off your rental income, compared to if you just have a primary residence with no investment attachment to it. Right now, as a renter, you can fully write that off as an expense, right?
Exactly. And it's that's what I mean. So I feel like when people hear rent, they feel like, oh, you're getting out of the market, right? I can't see the clock down, but I know we're counting down, right?
So, for 30 seconds. Yeah, I'm looking at for 30 seconds. Before we tune off, I just want to say thank you for tuning in to The Wealth Effect with myself, Nicolle Williams. We have Jason Allen John. And we're going to announce when we come back, we are actually up for an award, which is kind of awesome. We're up for Best Talk Show. So nice. With the iLive Radio award show. So yeah, we'll talk about that when we get back. So just less than 5 seconds.
Hi, this is Michelle Young, and you're listening to iLive Radio, supporting independent artists from all around.
This is Ronnie Sia, and you're listening to iLive Radio. iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio. Listen to radio. Listen to radio.
It goes down right here on iLive Radio.
Yo, this is Razan here, and you're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way we listen to radio.
What's up, everybody? This is Cy Smith, and you're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio.
My
beautiful people. It's your man Tayanas. And right now you got it locked to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio around the world, baby.
Nothing makes you look, feel, and perform better than a tailor-made suit. Just like a tailor-made suit, a mortgage is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Canadian Tailored Mortgage Solutions will customize a mortgage to perfectly suit your needs. Come and get fitted for your mortgage today at 1-877-834-9346 or reach us on the web at ctmortgagesolutions.com. COVID safety protocols are in place. Brokerage license number 13228.
This is Miss Care keeping you connected with your iLive 5x5. Brought to you by iLive Music. Sponsored by Independent Hype and powered by The Hook Entertainment. Contribute to the conversation by using hashtag iLive5x5.
For the latest and greatest in soul music and more, stay tuned to iLive Radio throughout the week.
Connect with our team at iliveradio.com or follow us at iLive Radio across social platforms.
You're listening to iLive Radio.
Here are some words of wisdom. Don't change your station. Don't change your station.
Okay, guys, welcome back. So just before we went on break, welcome back to the Wealth Effect Show, first off, brought to you by CTMS with myself, Nicolle Williams. We have Jason Allen John. But again, I wanted to just kind of share that we are up for an award. And so iLive Radio is hosting their award show for 2021. It's going to be at the end of April. And we have been nominated, Jason.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're up for Best Talk Show. So I'm asking all of our supporters to please go out, ensure that you vote for us, www.awards.iliveradio.com. And yeah, so let's get us in there. I would love to see us to win. But at the end of the day, we're just, very thankful that we're actually in the conversation.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And we gotta get all our supporters to definitely vote for us to win that award. That's great. And we gotta continue to just hammering out this great content and stuff like that. I think every once in a while we're gonna have to do an episode like this where it's like a big mortgage breakdown like this, like a dump on mortgages and real estate. But
like almost overall, like a masterclass almost, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting. It has me thinking because we're on Zoom, so it's like we could technically present stuff. So you know what I mean? It's we can kind of probably mix this up the next time if we have to show numbers, because even what we were talking about, just not to go back there, but to go back there actually, about parents helping people or family members or even friends, showing the value of maybe providing that down payment assistance as opposed to the CMHC fee, what that return could be. So I think people would understand that greater if we showed those numbers. So or maybe we gotta caption this, clip it, put it on Instagram, and we'll put some numbers in the text, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. No, I think what you said is key, because again, remember, this is new to both of us, as far as the radio, the hosting. We just wanted to be able to provide content that is really having people elevate themselves as far as their mind, their thought process in how you can create wealth, right? Jason and I obviously are on the mortgage end of things, but we are both invested in so many different areas, and we just want to be able to bring a breadth of knowledge, right, to the Canadian consumer with Canadian content, because that's key. There's a lot of information that is circulated, but it's not really strictly Canadian content, right? So I think Jason has something, he's onto something when he says the next time we could probably, utilize the platform to share some better numbers and really engage people as to why we say what we say, other than just saying it, we're showing you statistical information.
Yeah, because otherwise people are gonna be like, what are you talking about? That makes no sense.
That's
but it's just, it's just breaking down some slight information where I feel like people could take advantage of, just other stuff, even to talk about something that's also, I think that also affects our real estate market, but people don't realize too. For example, the dollar has been skyrocketing since like last year too. Like last year we were sitting at like 72 cents for the Canadian dollar to the US, and sorry, 68 cents. And now we're at 81 cents.
Yes.
Like, so like that also affects prices because as you know, the increase in our dollar, it's also showing the strength of the Canadian market. But I think it's all related to the price of oil and gas going up. So I don't know if you've been to the pump, but oh yeah, you don't.
I haven't been.
But I've been to the pump, and that pump is expensive right now.
Yeah.
So the cost of gas is going up. Like the other day I was pumping, I swear it was like $1.49 or $1 like in the 50s. So you know, I remember it was straight pandemic, like last year May, when you know oil was actually negative. You know, we're talking about like under $1, right? So we're seeing the effects on like the inflation, right? So you know, inflation numbers haven't gone up. So this is where I think, and this is where I get on my economist tech hat in it, where I think that the Bank of Canada will be raising rates faster than they say they are, because they have an inflation target, and the inflation target's like 2.5% or whatever. I should probably Google that, but they're getting up to that. So if they get up to the inflation target, they have to raise rates. And if all these prices are going up, then that doesn't make sense 2023.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's why people were saying that they didn't agree with the predictions of the Bank of Canada, right? That's what basically has come out, right?
Yeah. So are they really lying to us? Or you know what I mean? So the inflation target is 2%, right? So, you know, right now, I think, what's the inflation right now? So the inflation right now is 1%. So if their target is 2%, but I don't know if I believe that. 1%.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, right.
When I go to the grocery store, it tells me it's way higher than 1%.
Yeah. So it's interesting because what is in the consumer price index is very interesting because mortgage pricing is in it, but because rates have gone down so much, it has with the cost of everything has gone up, the cost of borrowing has gone down, which has gone the negative effect, which has helped inflation measures go down. But if interest rates start going up, then inflation is going to go up.
Yeah.
And then what's going to happen? They have no choice but to start raising rates, right?
Yes.
So,
you know what I also wanted to kind of just circle back on, something that we discussed with Ashley with blockchain. When I think you brought it up, I don't know if it was you or Ashley, talking about the possibility through blockchain of having the ownership, like, you know, everybody can have a small piece when it comes to real estate. And the fact that NFTs are like the new thing and where that's going to be going. And I'm just so curious about this whole the possibilities that are going to come as a result directly in the real estate market through blockchain. Because I think if you are thinking that, you know, she's saying this, you know, there's probably thousands and dozens of people that are probably echoing and saying the same thing. So be very curious to see where that goes as far as ownership down the line. And how that can then just open up real estate even greater for people across the world, right?
Well, think about it. Like I just talked about it, like with the down payment assistant. Yeah. Imagine you could use the blockchain and you could fractionalize a house. Or imagine you can go and say, hey, me and my friends, we're going to buy an apartment building. We could all live we'll buy like a 15-plex and we'll all live in a certain amount of units. And I'll fractionalize this. It's almost in the same sense as what a co-op is. If you think about it, it's very similar. So how do you fractionalize it and stuff like that? And it'll be much easier to actually own real estate. And then you wouldn't have a mortgage. There wouldn't be no need for a mortgage. Because a mortgage does, like, although when we say, oh, the interest rate's only 1% or whatever, like literally you're paying over hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest over the years. So could there be some sort of link or connection where with the blockchain where you can eliminate the need for mortgages but you can buy a piece fractional? So I want to buy a house, I get 100 people, I tokenize my house, I divide my house into 100 pieces and I sell it and I get no mortgage and I have no payment.
Yeah. Such a cool concept. I'm just, you know, like this is something that, like, I'm telling you, since that conversation that we had, like, I know my antennas have been super up, right? Even to, I don't know if you know the artist, Toronto artist, Young Yemi. Do you know that? Okay. No. he does like Afro futuristic type art.
Okay.
Really, really good guy, like young. So his Instagram, I think, is Young Yummy. Anyways, if you wanted to look him up, but even why it caught my attention is that he's actually releasing a one of one, and he's doing it through the NFT as well. And I was like, oh my goodness, I just learned about that. And and then here we have him like putting out his art. So I'm like, okay, if this is really now taking off, where artists, even in Toronto, local to us, are really taking in, I'm like, okay, what's going to happen next when it comes to real estate? So even just kind of keeping my own ear to the ground as to what's happening, I think is going to be super crucial. This is the types of conversations that I think we definitely need to have and start thinking outside of the box, because you know what, there may be resistance, but the reality is we can't stop where things are going to go, right? So if you can be at that beginning part of the curve of really seeing and participating, I think there will be some opportunities,
Yeah, for sure. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities for people to take advantage of. Definitely.
Yeah.
That's unique. I honestly, we got to do some more research on that, because I think I don't want to we're talking about it, we're putting it out there. I hate, there are companies, like I said, when we were talking with Ashley, there are companies in the States that are doing it. They're using the Ethereum platform to make it happen, right? So I just wonder how, imagine you just had like a wicked amazing property that was like downtown Toronto, like instead of doing that, could I actually just buy it and tokenize it? You know what I mean? Maybe we should look into it. Just buy a property.
I think we should look into it, and figure out maybe we can get somebody on, because I think just, it's just, to me, as I said, we had the conversation, then I'm there scrolling on Instagram because I do follow this artist and I really do love his work. And then when I saw him saying he's releasing a one of one and it's an NFT, I'm like, wait, what? We just talked about that. So I'm like, okay, there is literally something that is going to happen. I know he's in the art space, which is different. But again, it doesn't mean that it can't happen, and as you said, if they're doing it already in the States, it's going to be not too long before it perhaps starts to trickle north of the border as well. Right.
Yeah, it's definitely going to happen. It's just a matter of who gets in first and comes up with the right concept that makes the most sense. That eliminates. I just think there has to be if you could eliminate, the key would be to eliminate the mortgage.
Yes.
How could you eliminate the mortgage? But still, remember, mortgage rates are so low. So eliminating the mortgage, but providing investors the return that they want. So I wonder what that is. You know what I think would work very well in that? Like working spaces. So imagine you had you had like a space, like an office that you rented, but you bought fractional ownership in the office space, which was equated to the same time that you kind of
that makes sense,
work there. Because so that's actually very, very interesting. Like, how could you do that? And then there's some sort of value in that, right?
Yeah, and you know what? Because that's commercial lending. Commercial lending is a whole different ballgame to your residential, and how the rates are, the fees are, and all that stuff. So then you're right. Probably that might be a play on how you can enter or ease into that type of market.
Yeah. It's a way, because imagine you're like, okay, I'm gonna be in my office, but I'm gonna own a fraction of my office that also gives me time in it. You know what I mean? And then the office can still make money because it could rent it out to people that are not part of the ownership
structure,
right? Or your rent goes towards it's almost like a rent to own. So it's very interesting. Like that's honestly that's like the stuff that's gonna lose half of our audience.
I know.
or we're gonna get some.
Thinking about it, I was just thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, like I wonder how,
There is a way, right? Honestly, I don't know the blockchain enough to kind of say how to set that up, but I'm like there has to be a way to do it, and I think it would work well with like commercial. Yeah. I'm worried. I think residential, it's difficult because residential sometimes doesn't provide that return. So you buy a property, but it doesn't rent for what you buy it for. So yeah. So okay. We got to pick it up next time, or we got to find a guest.
Yeah.
And they can talk about it more, right?
Yes. So we have less than a minute. So I just want to make sure that, again, I wanted to say thank you for tuning into the Wealth Effect Show with myself, Nicolle Williams, Jason Allen John. Want to remind everybody that we are up for our first award, right? Best talk show with iLive Radio. So just a reminder before I turn it over to Jason. The website is awards.iliveradio.com, and you'd be looking for us, Best Talk Show, and under that category, The Wealth Effect.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, everybody, and look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Yes, definitely. Have a wonderful weekend.
All right.
Hello there, this is Benjamin Clementine and listening to iLiveRadio.com.
Hey, what's up, Toronto? My name is Bosco, and you're listening to iLive Radio.
This is Dwight Drummond from CBC News Toronto, and you're listening to iLive Radio.
Hey, what's going down, man? It's your boy Trix, a.k.a. the Human Jump Off, man. You locked into iLive Radio. They changed the way I listen to radio, man.
Well, y'all listen to iLive Radio. My name is Steve Boyd, the Parliament Funkadelic, and we want to thank iLive Radio for keeping the funk alive all over the world, worldwide.
Taxman here. I invite you to join me each and every Thursday between the hours of 5 and 7 p.m. right here on iLive Radio, where we give you the very best in independent and neo-soul flavors.